All right, so if you've ever even glanced at a stock, I bet you've seen this little number called the PE ratio. It's one of the most fundamental tools in any investor's toolbox, for sure. But what does it actually tell you? Let's break down what it is and, more importantly, how to actually use it. This is the question every single investor has to ask themselves. You see a stock price, maybe it looks cheap, maybe it looks crazy expensive, but how can you really tell if you're getting a good deal or just walking straight into a value trap? Because let's be real, the price tag by itself, it doesn't tell you the whole story. And that's the real challenge, isn't it? We need some way to look past that surface level stock price and find its true price tag, a way to figure out what you're really paying for relative to what the company is actually making. So, that leads us right into our first big question. How in the world do we figure out if a stock is expensive? And it's not just about the dollar amount. A $500 stock could be an absolute bargain, while a $10 stock could be wildly overpriced. And that is exactly where our tool for today comes in. The price-to-earnings ratio, what everyone just calls the PE ratio, is the go-to metric that analysts and investors use to get a quick read on a company's valuation. Okay, so let's pop the hood and see how this thing actually works. What exactly is this ratio, and what's the mechanics behind it? At its heart, the definition is actually super simple. We're just taking the company's stock price and comparing it directly to how much profit it makes for each individual share. That's it. It's a direct comparison of price to profit. Or, to put it another way, and I really like this way of thinking about it, the PE ratio is basically a price tag. It tells you exactly how many dollars investors, people just like you, are willing to shell out for just one single dollar of a company's earnings. And the math? It's beautifully simple. You grab the current stock price, then you find the company's earnings per share, which, by the way, you can find in pretty much any financial report, and boom, you just divide the price by the earnings. Price divided by earnings. P-E. See, it's right there in the name. So, let's say you see a company with a PE of 20. What on earth does that even mean? Well, it means that right now, investors are willing to pay $20 for every $1 of that company's current annual profit. The higher that number, the bigger the premium you're paying for those earnings. All right, but like with most things in finance, it gets a little more interesting. There isn't just one single PE ratio. The two you're going to see most often are the forward and the trailing PE. And it all comes down to a simple question. Are we looking in the rearview mirror, or are we trying to look through the windshield? On one hand, you've got the trailing PE. This uses the actual hard and fast earnings from the last 12 months. It's objective, it's a fact. The only downside? It's old news. On the other hand, you've got the forward PE. This one uses analysts' estimates of what the company will earn in the future. It's forward-looking, which is great, but it's also a guess. It's subjective, and sometimes those guesses are just plain wrong. And here's a cool little trick. You can actually use these two numbers to get a read on what the market is thinking. If that future number, the forward PE, is lower than the past one, well, that's a pretty big hint that Wall Street expects earnings to go up. It suggests today's price might actually be cheaper than it looks based on future potential. Okay, now we're getting to what I think is the golden rule of using the PE ratio. Seriously, if you remember just one thing from all of this, make it this next part. It is absolutely crucial. Here it is. A PE of 20, or 10, or 50 tells you absolutely nothing by itself. It's just a number floating in space. Is 20 high? Is it low? Who knows? It's totally useless. Unless you compare it to something. Context is everything. So, what do you compare it to? Three key things. First off, how does its PE today stack up against its own history? Is it higher or lower than its own average? Second, and this one is so important, how does it look next to its direct competitors in the exact same industry? And third, how does it compare to the broader market, like the average PE for the S&P 500? Okay, let's make this real. Look at Marathon Petroleum. Its PE is about 23. Now, if you compare that to the S&P 500 average of around 24, it seems pretty much in line, right? No big deal. But then you look at a direct competitor in the energy sector, Hess Midstream, with a PE closer to 15. Whoa, suddenly Marathon looks way pricier. See? Context changes the entire story. Now, it's super important to remember that the PE ratio isn't a magic wand. Like any tool, it's great for some jobs and really terrible for others. We have to know its limits. So where does this tool kind of fall apart? Well, for one, if a company isn't making any money or it's losing money, you can't even calculate a PE. It's not applicable. We've also seen it's useless for comparing companies in different businesses. Also, really high debt can warp the numbers and make them misleading. And finally, let's not forget the E in PE stands for earnings. If a company is being, let's say, creative with their accounting, then the whole ratio is built on a lie. Garbage in, garbage out. But hey, that's why we have a whole toolbox, right? When one tool doesn't work, you just grab another one. For those young, fast-growing companies that aren't profitable yet, something like the price-to-sales ratio is often way better. Or for banks and big industrial companies with tons of physical assets, the price-to-book ratio can give you a clearer picture. And this chart right here, this is the perfect visual for why you absolutely cannot compare across different industries. The average tech stock trades at a PE over 30 because investors are betting on huge growth. The communications sector, much lower, around 19. Comparing them directly using PE is truly like comparing apples and oranges. It just doesn't make sense. So really, the big takeaway here is this. The PE ratio is a fantastic starting point. It's a great conversation starter, but it's not the whole conversation. To really understand a company, you need a whole variety of tools. Which brings us full circle, all the way back to that first question. But now we've got a new lens to look through it. Is a stock with a low PE ratio always a steal? Or could it just be cheap for a very, very good reason, a sign of a business the market has rightly given up on? That's the critical question the PE ratio helps you ask next.